Coming up on this Tuesday evening's edition of News Center. At her first cabinet meeting for 2016, President Park Geun-hye renews her call for economic growth through reform while emphasizing the need to work for the people and the nation. Fresh tensions are brewing, this time between the National Assembly Speaker and the presidential office over the handling of key pending bills. And Saudi Arabia goes on to sever all commercial relations with Iran. Its allies in the region are joining in on the movement. Turn to an expert to find out the potential ripple effects. News Center begins now. Good evening to our viewers in Korea, and hello to those of you tuning in from different time zones. Welcome to News Center. I'm Daniel Choi. President Park Geun-hye laid out a roadmap for this year's policy at the first cabinet meeting of 2016. In addition to calling on the parliament to work for the people, she stressed the need to root out corruption in order for the economy to make a leap forward. We now turn to our Song Ji-sun for more. Ji-sun, the president's entering her fourth year in office. What was the focal point of this year's message?
Good evening. President Park Geun-hye renewed her call for economic growth reform, saying that she and her administration will do all they can for the people and the nation for the remainder of her term. The president asked the cabinet members to work to improve the livelihoods of the public. She asked for the same efforts from the National Assembly, which has yet to vote on a package of economy-related bills, including the one on labor reform that she has actively promoted. She repeated her call for lawmakers to both pass the bills and work for the people they represent.
이대로 국회가 문을 닫는다면 청년 일자리의 문도 닫히게 되고 대한민국의 미래도 닫히게 됩니다. 부디 새해에는 국회와 정치권 모두 진심으로 국민을 위해 힘을 모으고 신뢰를 얻게 되기를 바랍니다.
President Park added that Koreans should have more confidence in the economy, citing a report by the UK-based Center for Economics and Business Research that says Korea will overtake most Western European countries to become one of the world's top 5 economies at some point in the 2030s. She also called her administration to root out corruption, saying that outdated misdeeds stand as obstacles to her plans for strengthening the Korean economy through reforms. Back to you.
All right, thank you for that, Ji-sun. Meanwhile, rival party lawmakers are too tied up over their impasse on the pending legislation, as well as their differences on how to redraw the country's electoral map. Now, all of this and more is making for political chaos, even resulting in a new rift between the top office and the National Assembly Speaker. Shin Se-min takes a closer look at what's leading them to butt heads.
The presidential office of Chung Hwa-jae had sharp words for National Assembly Speaker Chung Hee-hwa on Tuesday over his refusal to use his power to put major contentious bills to a parliamentary vote. Following an annual New Year meeting at the presidential office Monday, Chung told Chief Presidential Secretary Lee Byung-gi that he would handle the row over a set of economy-reviving bills separately from the standoff over redrawing the electoral map. The Assembly Speaker drew a line saying the two issues should not and would not be linked together. But the top office rebutted and clarified that President Park never asked Chung to bundle the issues, but was only asked to put a number of stalled livelihood-related bills up for a vote. The presidential office went on to say that Chung didn't seem to be too concerned about the country's economic difficulties, adding that it seemed as though he's using his position to play politics. With less than 4 days left before the current extraordinary session ends, flaring tensions are only seen as diversions from the main issues that the parliament and government must face. Chung said he has no intentions to use his authority as a speaker to bring the bills to the floor for a vote, possibly signaling a protracted confrontation with the nation's top office. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
And now turning to China's stock market. After the year getting off to a bad start, Chinese shares leveled out a touch on Tuesday after a roller coaster session. Korea's markets also rebounded after a 4-month low, but officials say a close eye will be kept on the situation. Kim Min-ji reports.
China's benchmark index somewhat steadied after the carnage on Monday. There were early concerns that there could be more of the same as the Shanghai Composite Index opened more than 3% lower on Tuesday. The index tumbled a whopping 7% on the first day of trading of 2016 before China's new system-wide circuit breaker pulled the plug on trading. On Tuesday, China's central bank flooded the banking system with the largest cash injection since September, which likely helped calm the market rout. Thanks to China's attempt to get back on course, Korea's shares also showed signs of recovery. Korea's benchmark Kospi added over 0.6% on Tuesday, bouncing back from a 4-month low the day before. The Korean government downplayed the impact of China's market crash on the local market, saying on Tuesday that it will raise monitoring of financial and foreign exchange markets and step up efforts to alleviate unnecessary concerns. However, experts warn of similar situations playing out down the road.
Negative investor sentiment regarding China will not easily wear off. Although we may not see massive losses like Monday's, at least for the time being, given China's slow growth and considering that the problems surrounding its economy are structural issues, market fluctuations can continue at any time.
The Chinese market rout came on the back of sluggish manufacturing activity in the country that cast a dark cloud over the world's second-largest economy. The panic sent shockwaves across stock markets in Asia, the U.S., as well as Europe. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Elsewhere around the world, Saudi Arabia's allies in the region have joined the kingdom in severing diplomatic ties with Iran as repercussions ripple out over Riyadh's execution of a leading Shia cleric. The escalating sectarian tensions are casting a long shadow over efforts to end the bloody conflicts in Syria and Yemen. Son Jong-in brings us the latest.
The Saudi government widened its rift with Iran on Monday by halting all flights and trade between the countries.
We decided to cut off all diplomatic relations with Iran. We will also be cutting off all air traffic to and from Iran. We will be cutting off all commercial relations with Iran, and we will have a travel ban against people traveling to Iran.
Saudi Arabia's closest Sunni allies followed the kingdom's lead. Bahrain and Sudan both announced that they were severing diplomatic ties with Iran. The United Arab Emirates didn't go as far, but still downgraded its diplomatic relations with the Islamic Republic. Relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran, two Middle Eastern powerhouses, have deteriorated following Riyadh's execution of Shiite cleric Nimr al-Nimr on Saturday, which led to an attack on the Saudi embassy in Tehran. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon urged the two regional rivals to support peace efforts in Syria and Yemen, where the two countries back opposing sides. He called on both foreign ministers to avoid any actions that could further exacerbate the situation in the region.
The Secretary General also reiterated that the attack on the Saudi embassy in Tehran was deplorable, but added that the announcement of a break in Saudi diplomatic relations with Tehran was deeply worrying.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry echoed Ban's concerns, reaching out to his counterparts from the two countries to urge calm and de-escalation. Amid the tension, the UN envoy for Syria is to visit both countries this week to gauge the impact of the crisis on efforts to convene peace talks later this month. Son Jong-in, Arirang News.
The clash of the two Middle Eastern titans show no signs of easing up. For an expert analysis of the current situation on the Saudi-Iran conflict and possible repercussions, we are now joined by Professor Il-kwang of Konkuk University Center for Middle Eastern Studies. Professor, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first of all, give us a simplified explanation of how it all led to this, how it all boiled down to this between the two giants in the Middle East.
As we heard that the Saudi government executed the Iranian very religious man. So it's really irritated, this really bothered Iranian government. And Saudi also has some very problem with the Iranian regarding this IS problem, regarding the oil markets and many problems. So all this comes together, make this situation right now, I think so. At the moment, their action will be there won't be any more for radical movement, but the rift between two countries will be we see much more longer. Yeah.
Right, and of course the outside world do not want it to continue. It looks like the U.S. and the UN have tried to step in to try to play the middleman to cool things down, but not seem to be very effective as of now.
Yeah.
How do you see outside factors could come in and have a role in turning things around? Is it a possibility, or do we have to just sit back and wait for them to cool off?
I think the only country who can mediate between two countries, I think the U.S. maybe can do. UN is, I don't think UN will succeed. But the only country, I think U.S. the only country who can relate this situation right now.
Okay. Well, it seems like you cannot stay neutral in the Middle East if you're a very close neighbor.
Yes.
You have to pick your sides.
Yes.
Tell us about the adverse effect of the conflict on the surroundings.
As we all know, this is not a new, but we have some conflict rift between two Shia countries and Sunni countries. As we know, Iran is the leader, the biggest Shia country in the world. So all the Shia countries will follow her. For example, Lebanon or Syria and other countries. Also, 50%, more than 50% of the people in Iraq are Shia people. They will follow also, Iran. On the other hand, we have Sunni countries. The most famous or most powerful Sunni countries, also we all know Saudis and Gulf other countries. Also politically, Egypt is a very, very important country. So they will follow, Saudi. So this is this is not a news, a rift between Shia and Sunni.
So now there's a stronger, more visible line has been drawn.
Okay, yes, that's true. For example, Bahrain, they closed a diplomatic relationship with Iran just after Saudi closed it. So they follow it. So the neighboring countries that they have to choose. They have to follow what their leaders saying. So this is the situation right now. That's another new alliance. We all knew the Shia-Sunni alliance. Yeah.
Now the question that all Koreans are curious about, how much of the shock will affect Korea?
As we know, we are importing most of our oils from all countries, Gulf area, especially from Dubai. But Dubai oils from Iran. So at the moment, I don't see any serious, immediate serious situation. But in long-term perspective, we need to prepare the worst-case scenarios. Maybe we can diversify all imports from other countries, or we need to make a plan or emergency plan, or we need to make a plan to evacuate our people there. So we need to prepare everything,
Be prepared for the worst-case scenario. And in terms of economy and business, we have a lot of very solid contract for construction projects there. What about that?
Of course, this situation will affect our construction business there. At the moment, for the time being, I don't see any immediate damages. But we all know it's a volatile situation in the Middle East. So tomorrow, maybe the day after, we can't assume, we can't see. So we need to prepare in detail and the worst scenario as much as we can.
So this is not the worst of it. We have to brace ourselves for the worst-case scenario at the moment.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Professor Il-kwang. We hope to have you back here again for some more in-depth discussions later on.
Thank you.
A little over a week has passed since Korea and Japan struck their landmark agreement on Japan's sexual enslavement of Korean women before and during World War II. And since there have been different assessments on the deal as well as criticism. So where does the deal stand now? Our Kwon So-wa has this report.
Korea and Japan's governments did reach an agreement at the end of last year on the sex slave issue, but the aftermath, namely the eruption of voices of concern and rejection of the deal, doesn't seem to be letting up.
Abe should come up with a deep-hearted apology. Only then will we be at ease. We can't leave things as they are right now. We will fight until the day we die. Please fight with us.
Kim Bok-dong, one of the 46 Korean victims officially registered as a so-called comfort woman, expressed her discontent at a civic forum Tuesday that dealt with the drawbacks of the landmark settlement, such as the exclusion of the surviving victims in last month's negotiations between Seoul and Tokyo. On the same day, a group of lawmakers of the main opposition Minju Party of Korea met with Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se, saying the issue needs to be renegotiated with Tokyo. Meanwhile, experts in Seoul debated the issue and agreed that public consensus is necessary in order for the deal to be widely accepted.
The president and foreign minister, those in charge, should put more effort in helping the victims, their supporters, and the public at large to understand the deal in a sincere and honest way.
Some experts pointed out that Korea and Japan may have to revisit their agreement at another high-level meeting.
Korea and Japan are moving in the direction of a win-win outcome, but to confirm that things are in good standing, there needs to be reconfirmation to seal the deal once more at a bilateral summit meeting.
Experts said that it's important for people not to be swayed by reports coming out of Japan, as it's easy for different parties to translate the meaning of the deal to their own advantage, which could lead to more strained ties. In Korea-Japan relations, 2015 will be remembered as the year the two countries clinched the landmark deal. But it looks like their main job this year will be to respond to the questions and objections both raised by the public and, of course, the so-called comfort women themselves. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Aside from the actual terms of the landmark deal and the lack of involvement from surviving victims, criticism is flaring over an alleged move to relocate a statue that symbolizes the plight of the so-called comfort women. For details, let's turn to our Kim Ji-yeon.
Installed in 2011, the statue of a young girl in Korean dress symbolizes the many victims of sexual enslavement at the hands of Japanese troops before and during war, also known as so-called comfort women. The memorial statue has sit outside the Japanese embassy in Seoul for more than 5 years now and serves as a constant reminder of Tokyo's unresolved wartime atrocities. Replicas have been erected in different cities around the world as the international community has become increasingly aware of history surrounding the issue. So it's no surprise the Japanese government is eager to get rid of or relocate the statue from plain sight. Tokyo has faced rising criticism for its lukewarm attitude in acknowledging its dark past. But despite its efforts, weekly protests demanding for Tokyo's sincere apology and legal responsibility for the atrocities have been held outside the Japanese embassy for 25 straight years. During the warm seasons, supporters often lay flowers around the statue, while others wrap scarves around it during the winter months. And every day, visitors are discovering more significance in the statue, including a shadow that's cast on it shows the shape of an elderly woman holding a butterfly to her chest. Some people on social networking sites say the silhouette signifies the many wishes that victims find peace despite their painful experiences and memories. Tokyo has repeatedly claimed that it agreed with Seoul to work towards relocating the statue when it negotiated an agreement on the sex slavery issue in late December. Seoul strongly refused Tokyo's claim, saying it never agreed to move the statue and that the move would raise questions about Japan's sincerity in settling the comfort women issue. Around 200,000 women, mainly for Korea and China, were forced to serve as sex slaves for Japanese troops during World War II. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Shifting our focus up north, to kick off the new year, North Korea revealed that its leader Kim Jong-un paid homage to his father and grandfather at the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun. But aside from that, little else is known. What about his priorities and who will be by his side this year? According to our Connie Kim, analysts are looking between the lines for clues.
When Kim Jong-un visited the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun in Pyongyang on the first day of 2016, standing to his far right was Cho Yeon-jun, a first deputy of the ruling Workers' Party's organization and guidance department. It was the first time Cho was spotted in the first row with party secretaries who sit much higher up on the power ladder. The 75-year-old is known to be in charge of executing senior officials, and his placement in last Friday's lineup is grabbing attention because it coincided with the North Korean leader's New Year's speech, which focused on efforts to root out corruption.
We must intensely fight against corruption, bureaucracy, and forces that disrupt unity among our workers.
Other officials that took the front rows were Army Politburo Chief Hwang Byung-seo, Defense Chief Park Yong-sik, the Korean People's Army Chief of General Staff Lee Young-gil, and State Security Minister Kim Won-hong. Experts say these men will likely remain as close aides to leader Kim this year.
The timing of this change can be seen as top officials pledging full support of the Kim Jong-un regime ahead of the 7th Congress of the Workers' Party of Korea.
What's also noteworthy is an apparent shift in Kim's priorities regarding the North's economic situation. Secretaries Oh Soo-yong and Kwak Bum-gi have also taken the front rows in the New Year's Day, possibly hinting the young leader will use these two officials to prop up the regime's ailing economy. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
China, for the first time, is using North Korea's Najin harbor to ship food and supplies to its southern regions. Kim Hyun-bin looks into how Najin could become an important connecting point for Chinese President Xi Jinping's 21st century maritime Silk Road.
Chinese ships have been taking advantage of a new sea route using North Korea's Najin harbor, and apparently the arrangement is working out. Jinao News Agency reported Tuesday that an estimated 600 tons worth of Chinese food and lumber was ported in Najin last year, en route to Shanghai. Jinao emphasized that Najin opens up a third major food supply route for Beijing, adding to its combination of pre-existing road, rail, and sea routes. In 2015, China's total food production reached over 620 million tons, with roughly 24% of those products coming from 3 northeast Chinese cities, including Jilin and Liaoning. They account for a huge portion, considering there are only 5 cities in northeast China that are capable of exporting food supplies. Beijing began using the North Korean port after signing an agreement with Pyongyang in late 2000 for the right to use Najin and Cheongjin harbors for up to 50 years. Initially, it used Najin to mainly export coal, but starting last year it began to support shipments of other goods. Experts say as Chinese President Xi Jinping continues to push his One Belt, One Road initiative to develop a modern-day maritime Silk Road, Beijing will only ramp up its use of Najin. China is eagerly searching for a new trade route in the East Sea that is able to connect to the European market. Najin has grown to become one of North Korea's biggest international ports, and with this prime location in the northeast of the country, many believe the city has the potential to develop into a Eurasia marine transport hub in the near future. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
The Korean government decided the years 2016 to 2018 to be Visit Korea Year and host 20 million tourists. But most of what is known about Korea to people overseas is information technology or IT or K-pop and sometimes even wrong information. Therefore, it is especially important in 2016 to teach the world about the real Korea. That's our news feature tonight with Lee Ji-won.
There are over 10 million tourists visiting Korea every year. What is their image of the country?
Samsung was maybe the first thing I thought about.
K-pop. Korea is one of the more developed countries here in Asia.
More people around the world are now more familiar with Korea, but there are still many that don't know the country or have the wrong idea about it.
There's often, do you live in North Korea or South Korea? And so there's still, most people, or a lot of people in the United States don't really know what Korea is like today.
In the primary school, in the normal education, the history of Asia, it's not so well taught.
I heard a lot about China, about Japan, but not that much about Korea, unless it was about the war with the North Pole.
How did so many people overseas end up learning misleading or wrong information about Korea? I came to the foreign textbook library to find out more.
Unlike Chinese or Japanese history contained in these books, Korean history is scarcely mentioned, if not at all, while some of the books that do have incorrect and misleading information. For instance, a number of textbooks still describe Korea as an aid-receiving country or have Korea's Dokdo Island as Japanese territory. A research showed that the most errors found in foreign textbooks regarding Korea are historical facts.
When Korea was poor, there was no way to promote the country to the world. So the world learned about Korea through documents from China and Japan.
In order to tackle this issue, the Ministry of Education established the so-called Division of Understanding Korea project, which aims at revising foreign textbooks and correcting the errors in them. So far, a total of some 3,000 textbooks from about 100 countries have been revised. The second most common errors found in foreign textbooks are Korean geographical locations. British and French maps from the 18th century recorded the sea east of the Korean peninsula as Sea of Joseon. The same record can be found in Japanese maps from the 1844 and 1853. But during the Japanese colonization from 1910 to 1945, Japan one-sidedly changed the name of the sea to Sea of Japan, and the name is still being printed wrongly in the foreign textbooks. Efforts to correct these kinds of errors are also made by Korean groups overseas. Thanks to the continuous work by Korean nationals living in the U.S. state of Virginia, the correct name of the EC was legally corrected in all textbooks and maps. Likewise, books in Tasmania, an island state off Australia's south coast, were also corrected with the right name. The majority of errors regarding Korea's history and geography found in foreign books are originated from Japan's history distortions. This video, posted by Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs on YouTube last year, claims that Korea's miracle on the Han River, or the rapid post-war recovery of the country, was possible thanks to Japan's aid on various infrastructures. This, in addition to Japan's recurrent sovereignty claims of Korea's Dokdo Island, as stated in Japanese textbooks. To mend and correct such distortions, the Voluntary Agency Network of Korea, commonly known as VANK, was established as Korea's first ever internet-based diplomatic organization. VANK searches for wrong information about Korea on the web, as well as in textbooks, in order to revise incorrect facts.
Maybe it's our fault we never provided the world with the right information about us, and instead kept on blaming China and Japan. But now we're striving to change that by providing the right information ourselves. It takes a long time, but I think this is better than just getting angry about it.
The results of 17 years of research and revision efforts by 130,000 volunteers are some 500 corrected errors from various global media outlets, such as National Geographic, Dorling Kindersley, and Microsoft.
It might take 50 years to correct distorted history, but it only takes one day to teach the world about Korea ourselves, if we do it first. With this thought in mind, we're further expanding our activities to promote the correct facts about Korea.
Korea may have achieved a rapid economic growth, but the world now needs to know the real Korea, a Korea that is based on correct information and facts. 이지원, Arirang News.
U.S. President Barack Obama is taking the battle against gun control into his own hands. He's set to roll out a series of executive actions this week, which would require more gun sellers to get licenses and more gun buyers to get background checks. Bruce Harrison joins us in the studio to cover one of the most hotly contested issues in the United States. Bruce, what does President Barack Obama hopes to accomplish this time?
Hello, Daniel. Well, the president's been trying for such a long time now to enact gun reforms, and after so many mass shootings last year, he's finally taking steps on his own. Obama said Congress needs to act if America wants to bring gun violence under control, but for now, he says he's using his executive power to try and curb the bloodshed.
It will potentially save lives in this country and spare families the pain and the extraordinary loss that they've suffered as a consequence of a firearm being in the hands of the wrong people.
President Obama said his actions don't need congressional approval and do not violate the Constitution. But House Speaker Paul Ryan said Obama's undermining the democratic process, and many Americans agree.
I'm completely against it. It's against the Second Amendment because of the infringement on the ability to bear arms. And in my personal opinion, I think it's unconstitutional and shouldn't happen.
The president reiterated Monday that the U.S. has far more mass shootings than any other country in the world. Many conservatives argue gun ownership isn't the problem, and more focus needs to be placed on treating the mentally ill. Tech companies are preparing to show off their most cutting-edge devices this week at the world's largest consumer electronics show. But some products had the honor of getting the spotlight early at a sneak peek before Wednesday's opening. The preview, known as the CES unveiling, is typically reserved for the show's best and brightest. A group of friends were there to pitch their creation, an airbag-like vest that could help limit sports injuries. One of the creators, a former downhill skier, said CES is an opportunity to draw attention.
Being at this CES is for us a big opportunity to showcase our products, to showcase our technology, and demonstrate that we can bring significant protection for people in terms in different applications.
In past years, groundbreaking tech items like the VCR and high-def television were shown off at the unveiling.
VCRs. Well, moving on to a product that's already hitting the market now. Moscow department store is selling a perfume inspired by none other than Russian President Vladimir Putin. Bruce, this will be a great gift for those who voted for him to be Time Man of the Year at one point, and of course, patriotic Russians as well.
Sure, you can support the leader and you can smell like him too. The perfume's called Leader's Number One. It costs about $95 US and it features a silhouette of the Russian president.
The composition was designed to be warm and well-rounded, and I would call it uniting. So it's not an aggressive scent, rather it's attractive, matter-of-fact, and natural.
This is the latest Putin-related merchandise to hit shelves in Russia. You can get mugs, calendars, and T-shirts, among other items. The Putin-inspired scent cast a softer light on the leader as well. You know, we've seen him over the years hunting and fishing with his shirt off, and even more recently, some videos online of him taking down people in his beloved Taekwondo.
Right, and Bruce, the perfume was described as warm and uniting, so perhaps a great diplomatic tool.
Hey, not a bad idea, but maybe just best as a gift. But wouldn't the world be so much easier if we could unite people by, you know, sharing the sense of our leaders?
True that. Well, thank you for that, Bruce. We hope to we hope you bring more exciting news like this one tomorrow.
All right, thanks, Danny. My pleasure.
Weather conditions have dramatically changed here in Seoul. The warm start to the new year has been replaced with a cold snap. For more on this drastic change, let's go over to our Lee Ji-hyun at the Weather Center. Ji-hyun?
Hello, Danielle. Yes, it was pretty cold today. Icy winds pulled down sensory temperatures below the freezing mark on this Tuesday all day long. And tomorrow will be just as cold as today. And it looks like sunny skies and clean air are in store for most parts of the country, but conditions will be very dry. Advisories have already been issued for areas along the eastern coastline. Now, optimal relative indoor humidity is at 40 to 60%, so keep that in mind and make sure to stay hydrated. On that note, let's move on to tomorrow's temperatures. The low here in the capital and Daejeon will start out at -5 and -3 for Daegu, while Busan and Jeju Island will start out the day at 1 and 5. Now, it's going to remain cold throughout the day as the daily high here in Seoul will only hike up to 2. 5 for Daejeon and Daegu, but Busan and Jeju should have a relatively mild temperature, peaking at 10 and 9. Now, looking ahead, more intense winter weather is here to stay for a while, so be sure to stay bundled. Now, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that's all for this edition of News Center. Thank you for watching. This is Daniel Che wishing you a good day or good night depending on where you're tuning in from.